Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jenless, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we are going to show you how to remember who you are and create your own happiness. Let's dive in. But before we officially dive in, I want to invite you to my party. Yes, my party on January 3rd. I'm hosting my 5th annual Word of the Year party. It is my favorite event of the year. It's completely free, and we are going to be setting your intentions for 2024. I personally believe that crafting a single intentional and aligned word is your most magical New Year's party trick. And we're going to be doing that together at this party on January 3rd, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. You can go and sign up completely free at jenless.com/party. I hope to see you there. Hey there, friend. It's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast. So thrilled to be kicking off a brand new year. Welcome to 2024. And we could not have a more freaking spectacular guest with us today, Riselle Celestina. So Riselle and I met at the end of 2023. We were chatting and I just knew we had an instant connection. It's so powerful when that happens, when you just have that absolutely instant connection. You're like, this is somebody who I need to be spending more time with. And something actually developed from this conversation that we even had in this podcast interview, where you might have an opportunity, maybe little hint for what might be coming later in this year, to hang out with both of us together. So enjoy this conversation today with Riselle, who is known as the Traveling Island Girl. So through her business, Traveling Island Girl, she explores and shares the Caribbean region, but mostly she shares about her island home of St. Martin. She's been calling it home for 23 years. But Riselle started blogging about 8 years ago, and she experienced a midlife moment, and that has led to her having her own Island Girl awakening. So not only does she have her business Traveling Island Girl, she also talks a lot about her own awakening and the moments that she's had that have helped her and supported her to step more and more into who she truly is, that path of self-discovery that has led her back home to that, what she really enjoys and that person who she is inside. So in this episode, we talk about those moments of her life. We talk about the things that really, truly matter and can help you to craft your own life that really celebrates the person who you are and invites you to step out with more and more authenticity and to be honest and true and to create real community for yourself and others in the world. So without further ado, everyone, welcome to the podcast, the beautiful, the amazing Riselle.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
So good. I'm laughing as I look at you because you're on an island and you're all in a, short sleeved shirt and I'm in my sweater.
I'm seeing that. I was like, I'm really glad both of us decided to wear color today, though, because I'm usually in my neutral colors. But I said, you know what? I'm going to be on Jenless's show today. I'm going to be completely untethered and I'm going to wear my yellow dress. And it's the brighter, the better. So I could show off that I'm in the Caribbean right now. Make everybody jealous.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for making me jealous. I was laughing yesterday. I got on a plane coming back from Kansas to Portland and I'm looking around at everybody. And I said to my husband, there could not be anybody, like everybody is so neutral. It's like that green, that neutral green and brown. Yep. And here I was wearing every color of the rainbow.
Good for you. Good.
Bring a little color to Portland.
Which goes actually so well with the Portland airport. I love that airport, by the way. I really love the Portland airport.
Because of the carpet? Are you speaking about the carpet?
I don't know if it's the carpet, actually. I just think it's like it's got trees in it and stuff. Whether I don't know if they're real or not, but they look real and they're cute. And it's just something else than just the sterile kind of airports that I'm used to seeing. So yeah, it's good on Portland for having a pretty airport.
I love it. They're actually doing renovations right now for anyone who plans to come see me in Portland sometime soon. They're doing renovations and they're building a huge green space. in the
Oh,
airport.
wow. You see
So
that? You
even more
see?
so.
Another reason to love it. Yeah. Good.
Well, and it makes sense that we would be talking about the Pacific Northwest and talking about travel because that is such a huge part of who you are and what you do and why you're here on the podcast today to speak with us. So you are known as the traveling island girl.
Hmm.
And how did you end up on an island and doing this job, creating content about
Oh,
your travels?
it's a really funny story. It was, you know, how they say that when you're going through something major, the best therapy is writing. So I started a blog about 8 years ago. I just turned 40 and I was going through something like a midlife crisis. You know, like most women go through it around the age of 40 when, you know, you don't know who you are, what you're supposed to be doing. Why am I here? You start questioning a lot of stuff. You also start looking at how your life has changed so much, yet has not changed enough. You know, it's like, why don't I have my own house yet? Or why don't I have this? Or why don't I have that? So you start focusing on all of the stuff that you said you were going to do and you haven't really accomplished yet. And then so I was in a space where I just needed to kind of like change my life, I guess. But how I ended up in St. Martin was actually I was born and raised on the island of Curacao. So after Curacao, I went to, like most of us, we go to the Netherlands to further our studies. So after high school, I ended up in the Netherlands. And then so I lived there for about 6, 7 years. And then I wanted to come back to the Caribbean, but Curacao was no longer an option for me. I always felt like that wasn't my story. My story was somewhere else. So I ended up on St. Martin. And St. Martin is a sister island because it's also a colony of the Dutch. So it's a sister island. So it was kind of like very easy for me to kind of like transfer at that time from Curacao, and I'm from the Netherlands, and then into St. Martin. So that's what I did 23 years ago almost. And yeah, I've been calling it home ever since. And then so yeah, around my 40th is when I started getting like this real travel bug. I've been traveling all through my life since I was one. I have like one of my first pictures was of me traveling with my parents. So travel was always very, very important to us. But I was always doing what my husband wanted us to do. And at that time, I was like, I'm doing what I want. And I'm starting to travel solo. So I started to like travel by myself to like little places here and there until I got like big girl panties on, and I traveled by myself to the Pacific Northwest in 2019, which was like an eye-opening thing for me. And I'm absolutely in love with the region now. Obsessed.
Yeah,
That's pretty much it. How the traveling island girl started. Yeah.
yeah. There's so many little nooks and crannies to dig into here because I know the
Mhm.
listeners have to be so curious because so many of us are travelers. So many of us are content creators or want to be content creators. So many are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. We're all kind of in this space that you are living in, that I myself am living in.
Yeah.
Travel is really important to me and something in 2024 that I'm saying, please, universe, give me more opportunities to travel. I've dipped myself into solo travel, really love solo travel. So, we've got a lot of curiosities here. And yet, Riselle, it takes so much courage to do all of those things. And you're just like, well, I did this and I did this and I did this. And there's so many steps here. So I'm curious to go back to that step when you said, I was living according to what my husband wanted to do, because that is sometimes that point that we get to, like you said, whether we want to call it, I'm not sure how I feel about the term midlife crisis. That's one of those that I kind of like mold in my hand and I'm like, ugh, this
Yeah.
feels
I
heavy.
don't like the word crisis per se, but it's like let's say it's a life event
Yes,
that
there
a
we
lot
go.
of us women go through. Yeah.
An exciting and tumultuous life event that happens right
Very
around
tumultuous.
40. Right. So, if you're willing to dive into what unfolded there for you that allowed you to start to see what it is that you really wanted to do, and that helps you to step forth into these solo adventures and some of the things that you've been doing since then?
I think I remember going back really a little bit further before that, before I moved to St. Martin and met my husband. When I made the decision to move away from the Netherlands to St. Martin, like, at that time, I didn't really know anybody. There was only one person I knew in St. Martin. And so when I moved, I remember all my friends were totally like constantly telling me, you're so brave. You're so brave. You're just moving to. For me, it was just never scary. That part was just, it was exciting. I was always excited to start something new. So I don't think that so much, but I did have a lot of fear to conquer once I became 40, because for some reason we start being so careful with a lot of stuff. I think I've been doing a lot of, once you get married, you kind of like mold yourself. A lot of us tend to mold ourselves to our partner and then try to don't ruffle the feathers unnecessarily. So you just go along with whatever. And at that time, he was also kind of like the breadwinner. So I went along with wherever he wanted to go. But I was always a very independent person and I always wanted to do my own thing. I'm very, very good at being on my own. I'm like one of those people that I don't need to be around people all the time. And I'm very happy with my own company. So I think that was something that I had to kind of like trust in again, because I kind of like lost that part of me for a little while being married. But yeah, it was scary at first, of course. And then so, of course, I started little by little by, traveling to places that I've never been, but maybe I have a friend that lives there. So then, like that, I kind of like started dipping my toes into it, but I wanted to share my story with others. And I started it was for my own, you could say I was trying to help myself mentally by writing it all down in the blog. And then from there, it kind of like became what it is now. And it's just like my brand, but my brand is also me. So yeah, so that's how the Traveling Island Girl started. And so I have that to thank. I have my little tumultuous 40th to thank for it.
A couple things that you say that really resonate personally with me is re-owning this part of yourself that is independent and is very okay with doing what you want to do. Because I think we are taught in so many ways that it's not safe and that we need other people and that we have to go along with what other people want. And so that somehow starts to feel more safe to us, but truly we feel really unsafe there because we're not owning what it is that we really truly want. So what you hit on there is incredibly powerful because not everyone, some people really do love to be with other people and that's where they get their energy, but not
and
all
it's
of
okay.
us.
It's just not all of us. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, especially, being raised and born and raised in the Caribbean, our moms are very protective in how we grow up. So we, especially my mom was the kind of person that, I remember going to the disco the first time, and I'm calling it the disco because it's like at that time it was like hip,
Is that like 13, the club,
14,
the disco?
Yeah. The disco. I was invited by a friend's party, and the friend's dad owned a club. And then so I was the first time in a club. So I was like, my mom must have set me down for an hour telling me all sorts of things that I had to be careful. Don't leave your drink. Don't go to the bathroom by yourself. Don't do this. Don't do that. So like we are raised with a lot of fears, constant fears that are pumped into our heads as little girls, and especially the girls, because my brother never had to go through this. But, so when you get to a certain time in your life, it's like you start doing things that are out of the ordinary, things that the generation before never did, or very seldomly, then it becomes like unfamiliar. And it's almost like you hear your mother's voice in the background, kind of like, you can't travel by yourself. It's like, why are you leaving your husband behind? And why are you doing this? And why are you doing that? So I'm hearing all of that in the back, and also society telling you that, hey, you're not supposed to do anything on your own, especially if you're married. How dare you travel by yourself without your husband? What's wrong with your marriage if you do that? So it's all of that comes up when you're trying to like break the norm, so to say.
Yeah, I hear this voice. My grandma, her worst insult that she shared with people was, she is a terrible homemaker. What a terrible homemaker. Like that
Oh,
was
yeah.
her
Ow.
insult, that you could not be a worse human being if you aren't a good homemaker. And so that's the voice that I hear whenever I do something without my husband, or if I enjoy myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
in a hotel
Like, how
room by
dare
myself. It's
you?
like, yes, how
How dare you? Yeah, it's crazy. It's just and to this day, I had to actually not too long ago, when I was visiting my mom, I had to sit her down and said, Mom, you really need to be careful with some of the things that come out of your mouth. They're really hurtful. All that it is important to you, or that should be important to you, is my happiness. It doesn't matter who else is involved in my life. It's like they cannot come first. I come first. So my happiness is like the ultimate that you should worry about, and not whether my husband's happy or not, or whatever I'm doing may be alienating him or not. That's not your concern. That's my marriage. So I had to have that one-on-one on it, which was a little difficult at the beginning, but I got through it, and I think she understands it better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard, having those conversations. So kudos to you for opening up and having that conversation with your mom. Do you have any tips for people who are like, okay, I know I need to have that convo with
Yeah,
with a
it's just
relative?
it's one of those things that you just need to find. And it's not, I shouldn't say find the right moment, because this is something that's a little hard for a lot of people to do. So there's never going to be a right moment. But I would say, just find a space that is safe for you to talk, and don't just ambush her. Just kind of like slowly start it in, and don't like what I did with my mom was, we were having like a really good day. We were just going back and forth, and then we were cooking together. And then she said something about my hair, which she has a lot of issues with, apparently. So I said, Ma, you know, I know that you're not from exactly my generation. I know we're different. I know I do things completely different than what you're used to or what you were told. But I'm not happy with you constantly telling me this or telling me that. And I know it shouldn't matter. Those are all things that are not important, but you are insulting me and you are hurting my feelings when you say certain things like that. So I put it in there. I had to choose my words wisely, because my mom is, oh my God, I love her to pieces. I really do. Like most of us do. And I respect the heck out of her. But so having this conversation was really hard. And I had to be really like careful what words I use so that I wouldn't hurt her feelings. So yeah, but I think it was a good thing we had that convo, because ever since I haven't, she's trying really hard, and not only with me, but also with my siblings. So that's good.
Yeah, one of those things that I think we start to realize too is that a growth opportunity like that, it's for us, it's for other people. And, I think that we can be teachers to our
Yeah,
parents just as much as our parents can be teachers to us. So
exactly.
that's really
Exactly.
beautiful.
Absolutely.
Okay, you talked about being happy. What is making you happy right now? I would love to hear.
There's so much actually that makes me happy. It's this new, because of course, you're, I know we said we don't like the word crisis, but all of these little crises that happen in life are there to teach us something. And whether we learn from it or not, they do start something new in us, I believe. So I just went through another one of those little, uncomfortable situations not too long ago, actually last year. And that has made me now being more open in, how should I describe this really? I think I'm more open to learning new things about myself and other people. I started doing meditation. I started like really practicing gratitude, breath work, thanks to you. So all of those things I'm now implementing into my life. And to be honest, I have never, I think, been this happy with myself. And then so what's making me happy right now is the fact that I've done so much of that inner work and that personal growth to bring me to who I am today, and to be able to stand in front of a mirror and be happy with the person I am. I think that's what makes me happy.
That's so beautiful. What an amazing response to that. And just So cool to hear. It's like our journey takes us in all of these unexpected places. And when it takes you right in front of the mirror,
Oof.
that can be a challenging destination.
That mirror has so much scary stuff to tell you when you're standing in front of it. Like, I don't know if you ever had it before, being who you are now, but I couldn't really. And a lot of times, unless I'm applying makeup or something, I couldn't really look at myself in the eye when I'm at the mirror. So where I'm in front of a mirror. So that was tough in the beginning when I started doing that exercise. But yeah, now it's got kind of like part of my routine. And yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Take us through that exercise that you do. What do you do when you look in the mirror?
Well, in the beginning, it was hard, obviously, but just like everything new is hard. And it's hard because it's uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable because it's new. So once I started realizing that, everything else started becoming a little bit easier to go through, I guess, or start. What I do in the mornings is after I shower and I brush my teeth, and I just did my makeup if I'm going out, I would tell myself, I'm beautiful. I'll be looking at myself in the mirror. It's like, you're beautiful. You can do this. I'll have a conversation with myself about what the day is going to be like. Don't worry about certain surprises. You can handle those. Whatever comes your way, you can handle. You're a strong, independent person. You got this. And then I high five myself and I go about my day.
What a powerful practice.
And sometimes I blow myself a kiss. You're gorgeous. Mwah.
I love that. A high five and a kiss.
High five and a kiss.
That is an amazing practice that anybody, please take that practice,
Yeah,
start doing it yourself, speaking to yourself in the mirror. Yes, I also loved what you said about it's hard because it's uncomfortable, and it's just uncomfortable because it's new. You haven't done it before. We don't talk to ourselves very kindly in general, so it feels really weird.
That's another thing that I started doing too. Is like I watch what I say. If I see, sometimes I'll be doing something and then I make a mistake, and I'm like, "Oh, you're so stupid," and I'm like, "No, correct yourself. Don't do that." It's like, you'll be surprised how those little things and thoughts and things that come out of your mouth can really affect the way that you feel about yourself. So yeah, that is definitely a no-no in my book. I don't do that, and I try not to say that about other people either.
Mm-hmm. Can I add one layer to this that is so fascinating too? Because one of the things that can help happen in self-development that's like, it goes so deep, is that we can start to even shame ourselves. Like, don't do that. Why are you doing that? Why? And so even that, it's like, have compassion it's add another layer of compassion for ourselves, for that person that wants to correct and wants to do it right, and say, it's okay. It's okay that I said that negative thing to myself, and I'm going to look at myself and tell myself that I love myself again tomorrow morning. And we start that practice of just layers and layers of compassion. Mm-hmm. It's transformative. So
that's exactly the word, transformative. It's a beautiful journey, actually, once you really start tapping into it and you start realizing all of the things that you can change, because you can change it. It doesn't have to be the status quo of your life. It's like, you can change who you are. You can start by changing today, be a happier person. It is all your choice, really. And that's the beauty in it, isn't it? That it is our choice. It's our own choice, whether we want to be happy, whether we want to be upset, whether we want to be whatever we want to be. It's our choice. So I think that on its own is beautiful.
It completely is. Thank you for sharing this. Is there anything on this topic of self-discovery, the things that have gotten you where you are, this journey that you've been on in the past few years that we haven't shared? I want to talk about St. Martin, and I want to talk about islands, because
I know.
I'm just like, we gotta get on that subject. And I do want to ensure that we share anything that is really on your heart that you just really want people to hear and to know.
I think, especially when it comes to women, we tend to adapt ourselves to situations and to people. And a lot of us tend to forget ourselves in the process. And it's important to remember who we are and who we were, and to remember that little girl that we were, that didn't have any worries, that didn't necessarily have, everything that we are so focused on right now, that is really at the end of the day, not so important. I was a real people pleaser, and I shouldn't say was. I'm still struggling with that today. And I think a lot of us do. And I think it's important for us to start realizing that our happiness is in our own hand, that we can change that, whenever we want to. It's like, just to tap a little bit into it and just tell you a little bit of the backstory. It's like, I separated from my husband last year, and that all of a sudden making that decision alone was hard, because you're going from, again, the comfortable into the uncomfortable. Not only was it painful, so that's uncomfortable enough, but you're also in a new situation where you don't really know what's going to happen, what's going to end, especially because he was the breadwinner. I found myself in a situation where I was like, what the hell am I going to do now? How am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? So the first thing I did was, of course, panic. And I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And that's when I started diving really deep into, self-development and personal growth, and really started on this healing journey that took me into this beautiful journey now of discovering and rediscovering my old self, and that's what I'm saying. It's just absolutely beautiful. All of it. So I think I want people to know, and I want other women to know, that they too can have this bliss, this freedom, this peace that I have now in my life. You can have it too.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So what has been the most surprising thing for you on this journey that you've been on since deciding to go out on your own, since separating from your husband? What has really surprised you about yourself? Anything?
I think my ability to now understand others better. I think now, when somebody came when they come to me with stuff or they say things like my friends in the beginning, they were like, oh no, you can't go back to him, blah, blah, blah. And they're like so strong into why are you even giving him the time of your day and things like that. And then so I felt a lot of shame in kind of like accepting my husband for who he is, and kind of like seeing if we could still work it out. I mean, like right now we're in the process of trying to work it out. I guess what I'm trying to say is that shame is something that I realized where it was coming from. So I think that is one of the big lessons that I learned, is that shame is coming from somewhere. And if you dig deep enough, you can get to where it's coming from, and you can actually tap into that actual emotion that shame covers. It's the same with hate. And I think that's one of the big lessons that I learned about myself, that I'm now able to see all of that. That was one of the things that was just surprising. I was like, it's this, but if I sit with this emotion and I go a little bit deeper into it, I'm like, that's where it is. So that's one of the big surprises that I found, that myself now, I'm like doing it on a regular without it being uncomfortable or new to me anymore. It's just practice, right?
Yeah. That takes a lot of courage for you to share what you just shared, because we can have a lot of shame around change. And so when we decide, I am going to, in your situation, I'm going to separate from my husband. Or we could say, okay, I'm going to decide to move somewhere else, or I'm going to decide to change jobs, whatever that decision is. When something starts to shift, we made the decision, and now it's like, well, maybe we could work it out, or maybe this job might lead to something else, or maybe I might want to move either back home, or maybe I might want to move somewhere else. We can just forge ahead on the path that we're on because we feel shame about changing to something new. And so this is such a powerful message. Thank you.
But I think it's not only the changing to something new. I think it's also, remember what society and your parents and your family has always been telling you: you need to fit in this box. And I think that's one of the surprising takeaways that I got from all of this, is that I don't have to. Like I tell my friends that all the time, the only thing I have to do is stay Black and die. That's pretty much it. And even to stay in Black nowadays I can use like one of those creams and get to a different color. So I really don't have to fit into anything. And then so if I decide that I still want to have my husband in my life and we are and still live separately, I will do that because that's what's working for us. And it's nobody else's business. It really isn't. So people are always going to judge you based on something that is a little out of the ordinary. And I think we need to stop listening to other people as much and listen to our own voice on the inside. Listen to yourself because it's about you. It's not about anybody else. Whether you're living with your ex-husband or not, or whether you decide to give this guy another chance or not, it's really nobody else's business, is it? So
it's not. Yeah. And doing it in your own unique way. Like you said, maybe we're not living together, but it actually works out for us to be this way. And, growing up, it's like we would judge so hard people who were not living the way that we thought. And it's nobody's fault. Like even what I said about my grandmother earlier, what you said about your mom, none of that is anybody's fault. The way that they looked at things, the way that we used to look at things and were taught to look at things, that's just the way that our society is. It keeps us in our boxes. What we are realizing at this point in history, the boxes are not serving humanity.
Not at all. They're not. They're not serving anybody. It's like, the beauty of it is once you start applying it for yourself, you see it in other people too. And you stop judging as hard as you used to. Cause I really used to be exactly the same. It was like, oh, well, you can't trust her because, and it's that person has a reason why they are who they are now. And you don't know their history. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what's in their minds. If somebody is really having a bad day and they take it out on you, I no longer feel like that it's me that's the issue. I'm not the problem. That person is having a bad day, So I think that's so amazing. Once I realized that it's just not me and that person's just having a crappy day, I feel so much more compassion for my fellow humans,
Right. Because we all have crappy days.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to have their crappy day.
Yeah. Have your crappy day, but don't stick in it. Don't stay there. Just try to get yourself out of crappy days. I'm having so many more happy days than crappy days now, since this whole self-discovery thing. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I'm on this path. I'm actually really grateful for the separation because if it wasn't for that separation, I wouldn't be here now.
It's true. I'm grateful. This is such a good conversation. I'm like, I could just have this conversation with you all day. When we happened to meet online, I was like, that is a human who I need to know more.
I think you and I should actually bring in this is going to be like a long, not today. Obviously we can't because we're going to just keep on talking forever. But if you and I meet, I think we better lock ourselves up in a room for 2 days because it's going to be a lot of.
So I think we're dreaming up an untethered crew get together where we all get to lock ourselves up in a room in St. Martin.
Oh yeah. But speaking of which, I'm hosting a retreat. So since you wanted to talk about traveling to St. Martin, there you go. I'm hosting a retreat from the 4th of June until the 9th. So it's a 5-day retreat in St. Martin. So you get to see this beautiful place I call home.
I love that you are welcoming people and that you are hosting. Have you hosted a retreat before? Is this a new thing?
I have. I haven't done it in a very long time, but now I'm kind of changing it up. Now with this whole personal growth thing, I think I should include a little bit of that as well. So it's the Traveling Island Gold brand, it was always about empowering women. It was always empowering women through travel. So it's beautiful how I found my way back to that because that was the initial point of starting it really. It was me kind of writing down my stuff and in the process discovering that I'm actually a good writer. Who knew? But then, from there, I kind of lost my way with everything else that was going on in my life. And then now I'm coming back to the reason behind the Traveling Island Girl brand, which is empowering women through travel. So I have hosted 2 retreats before and then now, but then those were really like me trying to almost like force women to travel on their own. Like, you should travel solo. It's like, it's the best thing ever. You know, now it's just, as I'm maturing, my brand is maturing with me. So now it's going to be more of a get together of women who can learn from one another. It's going to have a little bit of meditation in it. Hopefully, after this, I want to talk to you about breath work and then include some of that in there. And then have, of course, all of the fun and adventure that the island has to offer. So it's a travel as well as a kind of like a personal development retreat.
Well, that sounds stinking amazing. We'll just
know.
Tell everybody to follow you
excited
right now. Where can anybody who's like, okay, I want to be tuned into what's happening in June with you, where can they connect or follow?
This is what happens is that you can find me on the travelingislandgirl.com. I think that would be like the best. And then from there, you'll find all of my contact details. You can also reach out to hello@thetravelingislandgirl.com if you want more information. I started a second Instagram as if I don't, have enough on my plate already. Called Island Girl Awakening, which deals more with the more personal part of, how I went into becoming who I am today, that year-long journey that it took me so far in my, on this healing path and, self-discovery and all of that. So that deals with more of that, but you can find me on Island Girl Awakening or at The Traveling Island Girl.
Yeah. And you're on YouTube, right? Don't you share YouTube?
Yeah.
You share YouTube videos about the island.
So that is crazy because what I wanted to do was travel the Caribbean and share the Caribbean with other people. But when we got into when we were grounded, like nobody could go anywhere, when we were in lockdown during COVID, that little virus,
that little thing, we couldn't travel. So, and I said, well, why not learn a new skill? Take the opportunity to learn a new skill. So I taught myself how to do videos, the whole YouTube thing. And I started, the intention was because I was seeing so many of store owners shutting down because there was just no business coming in. Now, remember, St. Martin is almost 90% dependent on tourism. So with the tourists not coming in, there was a lot of the smaller businesses closing down. So I wanted to kind of like highlight those because to be honest, I'm not entirely sure that how our tourist office handles this is the best way. So I wanted to kind of like, instead of highlighting always the same thing that tourists know us for, I wanted to highlight the little people, the little, business owner that has this little shop or that creates his own soaps or whatever. So that's how I started with the YouTube. I started kind of like really focusing on these people and their businesses and what they do. And it kind of blew up. And then now it's kind of like this major thing. And I'm like the go-to girl for everybody that wants to come to St. Martin. It's like, my inbox is full of questions all the time about, what should we do? Where should we go? And yeah, that's another thing that's like when something happens, how it kind of like redirects you into where you're supposed to go. Yeah, exactly. That is the perfect example, your journey of that, and really being open to new things and looking for where you ended up supporting all of these local businesses that maybe previously were being overlooked. So for somebody who wants to be, some of the listeners of this podcast, most definitely, like, I would love to be a content creator. I would love to kind of do what is blowing up currently for you. What advice might you offer to them based on your unique journey?
Don't do it. It is so incredibly time consuming. And I think the best thing that I can tell you is do not try, because it's very hard. And this is something that I struggle with sometimes as well. And it's getting a little bit better, but try not to compare yourself with others. especially on social media. That thing is just, it can destroy you. It really can. So try to focus more on your authenticity. That is what you bring up. And when you're going on social media, it is not, well, in my case, it's not about me. Whenever I'm posting something, I'm always thinking about the person that is reading or listening or watching whatever I post. It needs to be about answering some questions for them. This is not or at least with me, if you're a beauty content creator, then it's a little bit different. But I think it's always like answering your viewers, audience, answering their questions. So I think that's kind of like the best thing that I can tell anybody that wants to go into content creation. And be
Yeah.
prepared that it is hard work, and stop looking at the amount of followers you have. That is like the one thing I stopped doing not too long ago. And now I'm feeling like such peace because I'm not stressing that, oh, well, this video didn't do well. I was like, oh my gosh, they don't like me. No, it's just, don't look at the numbers. Just try not to look at the numbers. I just post and I click out of it and I step away from social media, and I try not to look at how it's performing. Because really what I am doing in my case is I'm just giving service to people. And it's not about how much I blow up or how much the traveling island girl becomes more of whatever it needs to be. It's not that. It's about the person coming to St. Martin getting their answers.
Yeah. I first of all appreciate your very honest answer of don't do it, because it is a challenge. Things are hard. We have to begin to separate. Part of what you're talking about here is separating the ego from what you're really here to support people with. And what I talk about with my coaching clients, it's a glitter for glitter exchange. Like, you are getting something out of this because you're helping other people. And it's refocusing onto that and eliminating the focus on the codependent type of things that our ego is so wrapped up in, which is people pleasing and all of those, and approval from others, because that's where we get caught up in the follower count. So one of my big things for 2024, and we're going to be talking a lot on the podcast, so thanks for helping kick it off in this conversation, is redefining our relationship with social media as business owners, as content creators, and really seeing it for what it is and pulling our own self-worth away from that, because it's not healthy. And even in building communities and things like that, there's just so many, we've got ourselves wrapped up in it in ways that are not serving us, whether we're just a consumer or we're a creator.
Yeah. It's just, there's so much nastiness that came with it, and we are forgetting why it was created in the first place. It's called social media because you're supposed to do some socializing. So I have had the pleasure of really meeting some really cool people like yourself via social media. If it was probably not for social media, we probably would, well, we met through something else, but it was still social media that kind of like brought us to something that we had in common, and then became kind of, digital friends, so to say. But it's really, it's worrying me so much how much of our self-esteem we lose on social media. And I think that is the part that I'm trying to kind of like remove that part. I'm just here to do what I need to do on social. Here's the information. And then I just close it off. That's it. And I do my other stuff. And I try to do as much as possible away from social media.
Yeah, I think more and more, and I thank you for being a leader of that and really helping to support people in moving through that themselves. And that's my goal as well, is to do that for myself and hopefully to support others to do that as well, because there's just so much in it. I think this goes even into the way that we scroll. Like, are you scrolling to find something that's supportive to you? Or are you scrolling to self-deprecate? Like, we find ways to shame ourselves even in our scrolling. Like, what
It's
feedback
like
loop?
we kind of like looking for stuff that will shame us, that will make us feel bad. And why are we doing that? Because of course, again, there's comfort in that. That's an emotion that you're very well familiar with. So you're looking up anything that will shame you because that's what you know. So we need to stop from doing all of that. Stop comparing yourself to a person, especially on social media, because you have no idea what is going on in the background or in whatever is happening what do you call that? You know, when English is not your first language, it's just so damn hard to find words sometimes. What do you call that when it's like in the back scene, I guess? What do you call that? Behind the scenes. Oh gosh, that's it.
Those idioms,
Yes. So, you know, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So just, yeah, it's just a lot of people, especially when I started with traveling content on social, I tried to kind of like emulate all of these like much younger girls, because that's another thing. Social media, especially then, had a lot of younger people on it. So all of them in that perfectly, you know, posted picture with all sorts of filters and editing work, and then here I am, 40 something, trying to, you know, go with the flow. And that is like, no, it's just until I discovered that I just have to be me. My photos, if I post a photo with, you know, I have a couple of love handles showing on the side, then that's who I am. I'm not going to start editing myself to fit into this persona that I'm not. And that's, so the beauty of that is like, I had people that come to see Martin and then they bump into me and they're like, oh my God, you're exactly like your videos. I'm like, who else am I
What a great
supposed to
compliment.
be? Yeah, but I know, but at the same time, it's like, I show up on my videos the same as I show up everywhere else in life, you know? So yeah, I guess, yeah, that is a compliment. It's like, I don't put filters. I don't put any of that. It's just the authentic me showing up every time.
I love that we wrapped back around to this thematic of authenticity, because it just pours out of you. And that's a perfect example of that. And it's really, how can we be more us? How can we be living more for that younger version of ourselves who knew exactly who she was, who knew exactly what she wanted to do, what she came here to do? It was so obvious and apparent, and we learn all the things that just distract us from that. And so coming back home to her.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, coming back home to her. That is the perfect way of saying it.
Yeah. Okay. There's one last question I would love to ask you. I ask every guest on the podcast, Riselle, where do you see the magic in the world?
See the magic and finding and rediscovering yourself. I think that's where exactly like this, it has been the topic of this entire conversation. And I think you wanted to talk a little bit more about St. Martin, but I kind of like went into the self-discovery part. But I think that is, I posted something not too long ago and I said, imagine if all of us did this work and we started discovering how beautiful life can be when we design it for ourselves. We wouldn't have so much ugliness in the world anymore, I'm sure, if all of us started being a little bit more happy with who we are. So I think that's where the magic is, in being yourself and then doing some work and finding out, you know, cutting out all of that BS. And yeah, can you imagine if all of us did that work and all of us found this peace and freedom, and it
It
will
would
be
be a whole
so
different world.
beautiful. It will be a completely different world.
Yeah. And all of the other stuff is there to distract us from actually coming back to this. So
And I think that is where the magic is.
Mm,
And
perfect.
each one of us have it. We each have it.
We do. I mean, I truly believe each of us is magic. What a magical thing that we even exist in this world. So let's use it to create even more magic. Thank you so much for coming on. And anybody
Oh my
who's
gosh,
interested,
thank you for having me.
and yes,
This was
anybody
great.
interested in St. Martin, go check out your YouTube. There's so much content there. We
Oh my
didn't get
gosh, yeah, it's
to speak
crazy.
a ton about it today, but it's
Yeah.
all out there for people to go and follow. So
Yeah. And you know, it's like I do so much. I have consultation services and all of that as well. And if you're interested in the retreat, definitely go to my website or just send me an email. But I now have a question for you, and I want to know when you're coming this way.
soon. After this conversation, I just want to come hang out.
It is very easy. Get into that whole Portland that we were talking about, our Portland, beautiful, upgraded Portland airport, and get you tush to Miami. And then from Miami, you fly straight to St. Martin. Easy peasy.
And I also love Miami. It's one of my favorite cities in
There
the
you go.
US. It's so, okay. Okay, girl, it's not going to be too long. Let me just tell you.
It's going to be 2024. I'm already have in my mind that I'm returning to the Pacific Northwest next year. So I think if we don't see each other there, we're going to see each other here in the Caribbean.
Yep. It's happening, and this is now documented, so the world knows.
Yes, and this is an invitation
for
for everybody who's listening. Pretty much, it's like if you want to come and join me in St. Martin and like drink pina coladas under palm trees or whatever, and discover this slice of paradise, then you are most welcome.
And so perfect that this episode is coming out at the beginning of 2024. You've got all year, but do it soon. Yeah. Go hang out.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. What a delight, and hope to have you on again.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Riselle. Look forward to a potential partnership with she and I later this year on the island of St. Martin. So as this continues to unfold, so thrilled to know her and that you now know her. She's such an amazing human being. And I hope you took something really, really beautiful away for yourself through this conversation. Tune in on Thursday for a Thursday thread. I'm going to pull a little thread, maybe a couple little threads from this conversation that we had, and dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that I personally have been moving through in 2023. What's ahead for 2024 so that we can set course for the path together. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of Untethered with Jen Liss, make sure that you're following this podcast so that you get notified of new episodes. You can do that on Spotify. You can do that on Apple Podcasts in whatever way. Just make sure that you're following, and then it will automatically let you know of new episodes that come out. If you really enjoyed this episode, if something really struck you, I encourage you to take a little screenshot and share it on social media. Tag Riselle, the traveling island girl. Tag me, Untethered Jen, on Instagram. We will reshare your posts if you tag us. Thanks again so much for listening. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye.